What is the absolute worst game you ever played? Maybe you thought of a game that was disappointing, or maybe you thought of a game that is filled with bugs and glitches. Although a few games I personally don't really like came to mind, I decided to find the definitive answer. I found a list of the top 100 lowest rated games on Steam, and I'm going to play them all to find out which game I personally think is the worst. Now, let's spin the wheel and get ready to go dumpster diving. Genesis Online? Wait, that's not what the title says. Let's get right into it. Kind of a basic loading screen here, but look, they have a button in the top right to mute the music. Finally, a developer realizes that sometimes the game is too loud when it's loading. I'm looking at you, Ubisoft. Now, all we gotta do is wait.
1 hour later.
Yeah, there's a slight issue. The game just doesn't work. I spent a long time trying to reinstall it on different disk drives. I tried running the game with earlier versions of Windows, and I even left it running for half an hour. And from all the different bad reviews and discussion boards I've seen, I'm far from the only one with this problem. Honestly, I don't know what the issue is. Maybe this guy is right and the server's just permanently shut down. I did find a couple interesting facts about this game though. For one, apparently this guy who put his phone number where his username should be has been trying to recreate the original game. He says to check out his YouTube channel for development progress, but seeing as how I can't read the fancy symbols here, I don't know what's going on. And something tells me that copyright won't look too favorably on remaking a game with the exact same assets. I also tried looking at more about the developer Shumkov Dmitry online, and I was led to IndieDB, where I can see that he actually did develop another game, Blockade 3D. Apparently it's a dynamic cubic world where you can build and destroy things in ones. I can definitely tell that these games were made by the same person, since they have a similar style. They also had a link to the game on Steam, and after I clicked on it, I found that Blockade 3D was developed and published by Novalink. Novalink also says that they developed Genesis Online on their developer page, but if you click on Genesis Online, it says it was developed by Shumkov Dmitry. I couldn't find out anything more about either of them, so I pretty much exhausted all the leads I had. I could just reiterate the Steam reviews I read that said that Genesis Online had laggy combat, tons of microtransactions, glitchy environments, people cybersexing, and oh yeah, infinitely long loading times. But without actually playing the game myself, I don't want to give this game a fake ranking, so I have two options. The first option is that I don't put the game on the list because I wasn't able to play it. The second is that I could rate it based on what I experienced, an infinite loading screen.
They're going with B.
But before that, I have another game I want to talk about. That's right, Resident Evil Resistance. The game originally came with the Resident Evil 3 game on Steam, but apparently it's been delisted on the store. I don't know why it was delisted, but they kept up the DLC.
Money.
The reviews themselves mostly seem to focus on the lack of dedicated servers and anti-cheat, as well as the inability to find a game. After trying to find a match for several minutes and randomly having January stuck on the screen, which happened every single time, I decided to start a practice survivor match instead. I picked Jan because her backstory was like every stereotypical hacker in every movie or game ever and loaded into the map. Your goal as a survivor is to complete all 3 rounds to escape the facility, and if the time runs out, then you lose. You're supposed to have 4 survivors in total, but since the game doesn't have any AI teammates, it's just me. You can gain time by completing objectives or by killing enemies, and you lose time by taking damage. Each round starts off with this weapons cache where you can buy supplies with money you find around the map. I spent a bit of time looking through my options before realizing I was still on the timer and moving on. The first round consists of finding 3 puzzle pieces, in this case 3 pieces to the statue. I also learned how fighting enemies in this game works. For some enemies, it doesn't take a lot of damage to knock them down, but it does to kill them. And if you want to make up those precious seconds, killing the enemies helps a lot. Since I picked easy, the mastermind doesn't place any traps or enemies as the game goes on, or at least none that I could notice, so I got through the first zone very quickly. See, not only does it take me longer to do each level since I'm alone, but you also get a bonus at the end of each round for each survivor that lives. Since I'm technically alone, I barely get any time. The second round is where I noticed one major issue in the game. There's no mini-map anywhere. Instead, if you want to know where to go, then you have to look at the large map. This normally wouldn't be a terrible thing, but some of the levels are made to confuse you, and having half your screen constantly taken up by a map makes it harder to see traps and enemies. For this round, you have to find and kill a security guard zombie to gain his key and unlock 3 terminals. Except for me getting stuck in this room since I didn't see that door, this part wasn't too hard. You just have to shoot the zombie in the head or else you don't do any damage. The terminals also aren't that hard to find, I'm just bad at the game. The final round is where you have to unlock these glowing tanks and do enough damage to them to break them. I figured out that I had to get to this tank, which means I had to lower this platform, but I could not for the life of me find a way to get there. I just ran around in circles until the timer ran out and my character dramatically collapsed. I tried again with Jill since she had abilities I could actually use, like when she realizes that she had a really strong pistol on her this entire time, and tried the prison map on medium difficulty. This time, the mastermind actually did more than just threaten me every 5 seconds. They placed traps down places I already went, there were different monster types like the demon dogs, and this thing that just died in 2 hits, and there were locked doors all around the map. There were also these supply zombies that spawned which gave you items when you killed them, and since they weren't any stronger than a normal zombie, it was pretty easy to get the rewards for them. This game went pretty similar to the first. I got past the first 2 rounds, even though I spent most of the time running around circles lost, and for the third round, I finally got to the first tank and unlocked it. Now I just need to destroy it, so let me pick out my strongest weapon. Okay, that didn't do much. How about my special weapon? Really? That's it? So yeah, you apparently need a lot of bullets to destroy these, and while you can use your knife to kill them, it takes far too long. I lost. Again. I tried the mastermind out next, choosing the person that was the best at traps, and at this point I could also choose a deck to use. When you play as the mastermind, you use cards to add monsters and traps onto the map to kill the survivors. You can make a deck before each match that contains all the cards that you'll use. I chose the one with the most traps and started free play since that was my only option, and honestly, I have never been so disappointed in my life. Here's me trying to use the auto-aim turret. See how it misses a stationary target? I also noticed that one of the survivors was killed by a zombie that I didn't spawn, and yet when you go over here, this dog isn't attacking the survivor that's right next to it. I tried placing a mine to see if it would explode near the survivor, and nothing happened. A survivor randomly died again, and I accidentally sent them to the next zone instead of setting off the landmine. I watched a dog run around in circles instead of attacking this guy, got notified that my internet cut out even though it didn't, and once the timer hit 0, the game ended. Yeah, even though it's free play, if the timer hits 0, then the game ends. And since sometimes the survivors will just randomly die and take huge chunks of time off, you barely get any time to practice your abilities. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I feel like I prefer Zombie U over this. There's another large part to the game, the skills and equipment. As you progress, you can unlock these extra abilities, and I know that a lot of people hated the so-called trap meta that made playing the game almost impossible for the survivors when some DLC characters came out, but since I can never level up, I can never unlock the upgrades or make these overpowered decks. So that's it. All I can do in this game is just play the practice modes over and over and over. For these games, and potentially more in the future, I don't know if I can give them fair ratings. I'm still going to put them on this list since I do want to rate every single of the 100 games, but in the future I'll add a note right here so you can see any extra info I added. I put Genesis Online as the third worst game because, in my opinion, the other two games are legitimately worse than sitting at a loading screen with some nice music. As for Resident Evil Resistance, I gave it the 5th spot. Fun idea and concept, but pretty bad execution. Anyway, I hope to see you all in the next episode of Dumpster Diving. Peace out.